Hey, welcome to Pat Soundbites Unplugged podcast in conjunction with WBXO Classic Rock Radio. Such an honor to have this gent on the show today. He's not only the front man of one great band, but how about two? Not many people can say that. Yes, he's the front man of the great band from Tempe, Arizona, the Gin Blossoms, as well as New Jersey's favorite garage band, and they rock, and he's keeping the music alive, as well as Mr. Marshall Crenshaw, the killer, the Smithereens. Great to have singer, songwriter, frontman, Mr. Robin Wilson in the house. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Good day to you, Pat. Welcome to my rental home here in Hicksville, New York.
Well, it's a pleasure to be in your rental home and spend some time with you, Robin. Obviously, it's pretty well documented. You got to be in the great tribute show when the Smithereens did the tribute for Pat down in Jersey, I want to say 2018, and you killed it. I think you played, I want to say, I have your 4 songs. Were you able to select those songs, or did they say, hey, what about these ones, Robin?
They told me what to do, actually, and the way I remember hearing it is that I had met Pat several times, but I really didn't know the other guys. And when it was suggested that I participate, apparently their reaction was pretty much meh. I don't.
Who is
I think
this
they
guy?
basically, yeah, they said we don't really know this guy, and so they're like, and so I threw out some songs, some of my favorites that I would like to suggest, and they came back saying, no, those are for more important people than you. We're gonna let you sing these 2. And so the ones that I learned were Blues Before and After, and
Green Thoughts?
no, it wasn't Green Thoughts. I'm blanking right now, but Blues Before and After was the first one I did. And then
I got you here for Behind the Wall of Sleep, and then Blood and Roses, I think.
Yeah, but that was at the last minute because apparently little Steven Van Zandt, he was going to do one of those, but then he backed out because I guess he didn't have time to really learn it or something. And so I got a call like midway through the day, and I had showed up for sound check. And then a few hours after sound check, I got a call, and they were saying, can you do Blood and Roses as well? And I'm like, absolutely, I can do that song in my sleep. You got it. And then about an hour after that, within like an hour of showtime, I got another call, and they said, can you do Behind the Wall of Sleep? And I'm like, yes, I got this. And so I showed up and kicked ass all over it, and I just hit it off with the band really well. And at the end of the night, I went into their dressing room and said, hey, I would love to do some more shows with you guys. And I remember the expression on their face where that was something that just hadn't occurred to them. I think they were kind of maybe under the impression that it was over, and that might be their last show or something. But I suggested we do some more shows. I would love to participate, and now I like to think that I'm actually a member of the band in a way. I'm not there full time, but I got this. I got it, and I really enjoy working with the Smithereens.
Those guys are amazing, Jim, Dennis, and Mike, and I applaud you and Marshall for stepping up. I mean, what would we do without them? So I think it's great. I remember you and I talked briefly. I want to say you were working in maybe a record store down in Arizona, and they were coming into town and doing some promo. Is that where you first met them? Something like that, a meet and greet you were setting up?
Yes, in Tempe, Arizona, there's a record store called Zia Records that I was working at, and I had been before that working at Tower Records when Especially For You was released, and that was a big record in the store. Every employee at Tower was into that album, and so I was already a fan by time Green Thoughts came out, and I was working at Zia Records at the time. And they came in to do an in-store appearance, and I was the one that decorated the store, covered it in posters and Smithereens, records hanging everywhere. And they came in, and I was so excited because I already had tickets to the show that night. And Green Thoughts was another fantastic record that we were playing all the time in the store. So yeah, I was super excited to meet the guys and go to the show that night. And somewhere floating around, there's a photograph of me backstage after the show with the band. And I think I was 21 years old at the time. And at the end of the show, I ran up to the stage and I ripped the set list off of the stage and took it home with me. And I hung it up in my recording studio a few years later. And in 1997, Pat DiNizio came into my studio. We had a mutual friend, a guy named Billy Siegel over at Fender Musical Instruments. And Billy brought Pat into my studio to record a solo record. I can't recall which album it was, but Pat made a record in my studio in 1997. And I took him into like the little workshop area where I had all this memorabilia hanging up. And I showed him the set list from that show in 1988. And, you know, he kind of put his arm around me. He was really touched. And he said, you know, the thing that's really funny looking at this list, the thing that makes me laugh is how few songs we had. And, you know, I thought that was really cool because obviously this was before they made 11 or Blow Up or A Date with the Smithereens, you know, and so many classic songs of theirs ended up on those records. So at this point, they only had 2 full-length records. And it was funny that that was Pat's first reaction. Well, his first reaction was pride and gratitude, but then that was his comment, was that we had so few songs back then. So yeah, I've just always had this connection to the band, you know, an emotional connection, and being a part of it now is incredibly gratifying. So.
Yeah, I mean, and they had to be a big influence for you, because I know this was obviously before the Jim Blossom days that you had something to look forward to, looking at these guys and meeting them.
Indeed, this was probably, God, it must have been within about 6 months of when I joined Jim Blossoms, and you know, it might have been within a few months of that. I really can't recall the date. But I joined Jim Blossoms in March, or at the very end of February in 1988. So it was sometime right around then, you know. And, you know, every musician in Tempe was there at the show. And it was, you know, they had a really big impact. Some friends of mine had a band that we used to play with all the time. They were called the Feedbags. And the Feedbags were all there at the show, and they decided that night watching the Smithereens, okay, we're all getting Marshalls and Rickenbackers. And that's what that became the sound of the Feedbags. And, you know, they were a big part of the Tempe scene right when we were getting started too. So, you know, the Smithereens, you know, so far from New Jersey, they had a huge impact on the Tempe music scene, and on me personally as a songwriter and as a singer. I sang along with those tunes, and so Pat's cadence and delivery was always something that I had in me. And you know, also Marshall Crenshaw was a big influence on all of us in Tempe, and some of his records were among my favorites. And Marshall had a pretty decent, outsized impact on my singing and my songwriting as well. So it's just so gratifying and satisfying to you know, to get to this stage of my career. I'm 56 years old, and now to be a part of, you know, something like that is really awesome. And as I say, it's very gratifying.
Absolutely. I mean, a pinch myself moment here you go. And man, 1 minute I'm like looking at these guys going, this is incredible. And now I'm on stage with them. I always say, Robin, there's no such thing as a coincidence. And I look back and I remember reading, you know, the great song Till I Hear It From You, co-written by Marshall. And to think you and Marshall are switching off back and forth for this great band. I mean, there's no such thing as a coincidence. That is so cool.
It truly is, and Marshall co-wrote one of our biggest hits, a signature song for our band, and so we've always had that connection to him. And anytime he was around one of our gigs, he would come up and sit in with us on that song. And so we've already got that connection. And it also worked out that we made our last record, Mixed Reality is the title of our last album, and that was produced by Don Dixon. And Don was always a choice, always a name that we threw around when we were starting the band, but we never worked with him until 2017, and we made a fantastic album with Don. And while we were recording that album, I would warm up every day for my vocal performances. I would warm up with my acoustic guitar, and I would sing a Smithereens song, because I kind of wanted Don to get it, to understand that I had that attachment to their music. And I was also doing a Marshall Crenshaw song that I've always loved, that Don had produced. So for all of that to come full circle, to make a record with Don Dixon and to write a song with Marshall Crenshaw and now to be a part of the Smithereens it's a pretty cool circle of rockers to be a part of,
Absolutely. You mentioned Mixed Reality. I love that album. I mean, I love Break. I played Break a bunch of times. I played Face the Dark. I mean, and you look at New Miserable Experience, 30th anniversary of this album I got in my hand.
Yeah.
I mean, man, very, very cool stuff. I mean, wow. What have you learned? I mean, this has got to be really cool. I mean, you're the guy with the gin blossoms, but when you're not with Jesse and Bill and Scott, this is just such a cool thing to do. What have you learned, if anything, Robin? I mean, this is a band just like anybody else, a family. You just weren't part of all the bullshit, excuse my language, that they dealt with. You walk in, it's a breath of fresh air. Hey guys, let's have some fun tonight.
Yes. Yeah, actually you nailed it. That is a big part of my experience with the Smithereens, is that I wasn't there for all of the battles and all of the personal baggage that they have to carry around, and everything that took to keep a band together and to make things functional. And speaking from experience, it's really, really difficult. And I know that my bandmates and I, we carry around a lot of baggage. And when I perform with the Smithereens, though, it's just about rock. There's no bullshit. There's no baggage. There's no damaged relationships or anything. It's just fun, and it's just all about the music. And it makes it easier in a lot of ways to be a part of the Smithereens, because again, I'm not carrying around 30, 40 years of interpersonal relationships. I just kind of step into it and do my job with a good attitude, and it's shown me how well I've got it in the Gin Blossoms. I don't have to go to sound checks with Gin Blossoms. And I don't, we operate at a slightly higher level of income, I guess, and production, because we have a larger crew, and so I have to work harder to be in the Smithereens than I do to be in the Gin Blossoms, and I do it with a glad heart because I love the music and because I love being a part of it. And also just to show that I'm in it for the right reasons, and I don't think I'm above any of the grunt work that it takes to make a rock band operate, because I'm not above it. I'm happy to do it, and but it is a little bit easier to be in the Gin Blossoms. It's a little more cushy. Let's say.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that's your baby. I mean, but seeing you at Ridgefield Playhouse, getting on stage, grabbed a tambourine, and it was kind of stucky. Everybody sitting in their seats, and you go, all right, let's get this over with. Everybody get up and rush the stage like we do at a Jim Blossom show, and let's have a good time. And I'm watching the security guys, and they didn't know what to say or do. And the crowd just erupted, and everybody was having a blast. And you looked like you were having so much fun. And I got to talk to Jim after the show. I met you before the show, but I got to talk to Jim and Cindy after the show. And Jim says, how cool is that? And I said, Jim, it was a perfect fit having Robin, and certainly a perfect fit with Marshall, who I got to see with the guys here locally at Daryl's house. We're talking about the show next Friday night at Sony Hall in Times Square. Tickets are available today, and it's a special show because it's not only with Robin there, but Marshall's there. Has that ever happened before, Robin?
Yeah, just last December, we did the grand opening of the Carteret Performing Arts Center in their hometown. And it kind of came about as an accident. Originally, I was going to do the show, and then there was a miscommunication, and they thought I couldn't do it. So they asked Marshall to do it. And then they started advertising that Marshall was doing the show. And then I figured that out, and I'm like, wait a second, I thought I was doing the gig. And I said, why don't just Marshall and I both do it? Why don't we just act like a 5-piece band? And both of us participate. It's a special show. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to miss out. And basically, when I saw that they were playing in New York City at Sony Hall, I just muscled my way onto the bill because I wanted to be a part of it. And I've got a gig in Las Vegas the next day. So I'm going to have to get up at about 5 o'clock in the morning and go to the airport to fly 3 time zones backwards to get to Las Vegas. And normally I wouldn't want to do that. And I'm not looking forward to a flying day of show now, but it's worth it to me to be able to participate in this gig and be able to take the stage with the Smithereens in New York City. So,
well, thank you for doing that. I can't wait to see that. And for all Smithereen shows, you can go to their website, officialsmithereen.com. And as Robin just said, he's flying out for a show in Henderson, Nevada, because we don't want to miss out on the Jim Blossoms. And you can check out all their shows at the jimblossoms.net. And they're going to be in the tri-state area, I want to say July 6th. In New York, and hitting Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and a few other shows. And I got to see Robin with the Collective Soul, and what a great combination that was. Also yes. June of 2019. Robin, I got to ask you before I let you go, how cool it is to jump on stage with your son, the Mercurys.
Pretty awesome.
That's got to be,
yeah.
I mean, a great dad and son experience. Somebody following your tracks and all into it.
Yes, it's quite the thrill. When is this interview going to air? Because the Mercurys have a show coming up later this week, Friday the 15th of April, where the Mercurys are playing in Brooklyn at, I believe it's called the Music Kitchen. Let me double check that, but.
I'm going to get it.
So that's happening this week. Brooklyn Music Kitchen. April. It's actually April 22nd. I'm sorry, April 22nd. That's this coming Friday. They're going on at 10 p.m. And so I'm going to be there for that.
Excellent.
This coming Friday in Brooklyn. So it's a huge thrill. Of course, my dad was a stuffy Republican accounting professor, and he didn't much care for my world, and we didn't really get along and relate very well. So to have my greatest passion, rock and roll, to be able to share that with my son is an incredibly prideful experience for me. And he's very talented. He's got great taste. And being able to, share that with him and communicate with him is wonderful. And it's been good for him because he's, if this is indeed what he wants to do with his life, to be a rock musician, well, he's been around it his whole life, watching me do my job. He's seen the entire process. He's seen me write a song in my bedroom and then demo it, in the home studio, and then, teach it to the band and then record it with Don Dixon. And he's seen the entire process. He understands what it takes. It's just great to be able to share that with him, and to have a skill that I can help him with if he's going to be a musician. I've got a lot of practical advice, and for the most part, I just kind of let him be. When he comes to me with a question or he wants some help writing a song or something, then I'm happy to help. But for the most part, I'm just kind of encouraging and letting him find his own way.
Very cool. Well, it's great that it's cool that he does. You guys do the Quitter from the Gas Giant days. And I hope my kids I hope my kids like Marilyn Manson. Is that on his set list at all?
No, but obviously I wrote that song years before he was born. I was trying to be tongue in cheek but at the same time I was being prophetic, that I hope my kids would one day surprise me with some weird futuristic music that I didn't understand or whatever. And it's been great to be able to share rock and roll with my kid. It's really
there you go. At the Mercurys Friday night in Brooklyn, we're going to put out this show this week. So go check that out. And Robin always supports his son anywhere that he plays. You just never know when he calls up Robin to help him sing Quitter, which is really cool. The show we're talking about is Friday night, Sony Hall, April 29th, the Smithereens, the great Robin Wilson and Marshall Tucker. Robin, thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I have, and the door is always open. Love to chat more with the Gin Blossoms end of it.
Sure, anytime. We've got a big tour coming up this summer with Barenaked Ladies and Toad the Wet Sprocket. And so if you'd like to put together another bit like this sometime before that tour fires up at the beginning of June, I'd be happy to chat with you again.
We would love to do that.
Cool.
It can't get any better than this, having the cool Robin Wilson. Go get your tickets today. Pat's Soundbites Unplugged in conjunction with WBXO Radio. We're classic rock and we're redefined.